Good morning, guys. Identity Plus is your diamond sponsor today, and what we really want to talk about today is a visionary change in thinking that we are bringing into identity and access management. Product, yes, our products already reflect it, and will be reflecting it more and more over the next 1 year and going beyond. We're also going to talk about another product, which perhaps none of you have heard about yet, that we're also doing a reveal of today, a soft reveal. So let me start. So we're calling this the true dimensions of identity and access management. And why we're saying that, I'll explain in a minute. So our byline that we decided to adopt, as much for ourselves as for the customers, for the industry, for everything, is it's about security. And why we're saying that, something so simple, which should be so obvious, is that we are seeing that a lot of cybersecurity products are competing in terms of market presence, feature-to-feature comparisons. It's a lot like any other business, but I'd like to expand upon what Mr. Venkat said in the morning and the whole purpose of this logo. And it's similar to a healthcare or a law enforcement logo. And that's because cybersecurity cannot be just a business. We are talking about the possibility of a business being horribly breached and in 10 days having to pay huge ransomware and have all kinds of repercussions that could shut them down just 6 months from then. We're closer, honestly, as cybersecurity vendors to a police or an army or firefighters or something like that. It's a business also, yes, but it can't be approached in the same way businesses are normally approached from a marketing and sales approach. So the first mass-produced product that utilized pressurization in portable cans, like you see in your Gillette shaving cans these days, was called Stop-It deodorant. Now this was created and marketed and saw huge success in 1947, very, very long time ago. But the fact of the matter is, despite this being a huge revelation, not just in terms of deodorant, but opening up the market and industry for pressurizing and, pressurized sprays for anything. Ultimately, we see it today in other things like pepper spray is an example, but we definitely also see it in terms of, excuse me, are we getting a video recording of this? Video recording, okay. Yeah, so we know today that you go to the supermarket, you'll see at least 20, 30 different products that are in pressurized form. But what about something like pepper spray? And the fact of the matter is, 1980s, late 1980s, so that's more than 30 years after Stop-It deodorant was first introduced, and pressurized spray technology became mainstream, only then did they think about putting pepper in a spray can for self-defense. Now, isn't that shocking? To me, when I discovered this, I found it absolutely shocking. Today, especially when gun control is so strong and, owning a gun in most countries is a big deal, and owning a gun in general is dangerous. Somebody could, instead of in self-defense, use it to harm somebody else. Pressurized pepper spray is ubiquitous around the world. It is really accessible, you don't need a license for it, and it's very effective at stopping muggings, stopping date rape, stopping any hoodlums, things like that. But fact of the matter is it took 30 years for people to just think about putting pepper spray in a can. So why do we see something like this in humanity where intelligence is so high and we have so much globalized awareness and industrialization over the last 1 year, and 100 years, and so on and so forth. The problem is that problem solving is business is far less a common approach than invention and product developing based on marketing and sales. And most businesses and industries, in fact, thrive on competitive differentiation and comparative positioning. So if you look at Slack versus Teams versus Trello, your collaboration tools, they have small differentiations. They thrive on innovating little by little, big innovations, and then comparative positioning. We're better than Trello because. Trello is better than us because. But this kind of approach is not what we really need in cybersecurity. What we need here is an approach that is constantly thinking in terms of the threat landscape and proactively trying to figure out how to stay one step ahead of these attackers. It has to be a problem-solving approach. It has to be a deep problem-solving approach, and one needs to have people that are constantly thinking behind this and how to protect, not just in terms of how do we keep our business alive or how do we compete with this other business. So research and development generally goes along the lines of, my competitor has this, we need to have it too. My competitor has this, how can I make something even better so that my product looks more attractive than theirs to the customers? That's general business thinking, and it works. That's why people do it. But it's business thinking, and it can't be applied in its entirety to cybersecurity. Things like personal security, business security, and national security are not innovation problems. They're not just business problems. These are problems as real as abject poverty, hunger, national disasters, droughts, and famines. Let's say we have a business that isn't providing luxury goods, is providing basic services, electricals. Take, the Karnataka board. If these guys get breached, and we have seen it happen, and it's happening, weaponization of cyber attacks to bring down nations, we could have a full Karnataka power grid failure for weeks at a time. It's perfectly possible. And that's why there's a bigger context to this that really needs to be thought about than just doing business for the sake of doing business. So yeah, this is just a graphic. We need a problem-solving approach, not a business-centric one. So Identity Plus, we are the product face of one of the industry's oldest identity and access management system integrators and implementation partners. Some of you who have been in the field for a while might remember us as Islantis Technologies. Our core team has unparalleled depth of experience in all possible IAM products and environments. We have learned where different products succeed and where they fail, because we have implemented in God knows how many kinds of industries, sizes of companies, geographies, with every possible IGA, PAM, and access management product. We know where IAM in general is failing and where those products in specific are failing, whether it's the implementation side or whether it's feature side. We also have figured out from this many unsolved challenges and hidden problems that neither most vendors nor most customers are aware of. So, Cross-Identity was our flagship product launched 4 years ago, and it's designed to be the pepper spray of identity and access management, if you compare it with the analogy of pepper spray that I talked about just before. And why do we call it the pepper spray? Because the approach is to solve real problems in the most agile, most realistic, most sensible way. It is to keep identifying these problems before they happen, or identifying and deconstructing the problem at the moment, and find solutions that work on the ground level, not just in terms of this is the latest technology that Gartner is talking about, this is the latest technology that this vendor has come up with, we've got to have it, otherwise customers are going to go to them rather than to us. That's not how we are thinking. And that's how we're able to create this. We actually started with converged IAM before Gartner even thought about it. We were the original creators of converged IAM. At that time, it was limited to access management and IGA convergence in our old product called Compact Identity. But we saw the need for it, and this isn't just an approach of platformization. It's not just an approach of 2-in-1, 3-in-1, pay less, get more. That's not the real reason for convergence, which I'll go into in a minute. Yeah, so I'd like to point out that while cross-identity was the first multi-technology IAM platform, this simple fact does not contribute to cybersecurity problem solving on its own at all. Obviously, what's so special about having 3 or 4 different technologies in one platform? Yeah, there's a little bit of ease of use, ease of deployment. The cost theoretically could come down a little bit if you do bundle pricing, but how are you really giving answers to cybersecurity problems? So I'll give an example of the case of privileged access management. A broad answer to what is the fundamental problem that privileged access management is trying to solve is to provide specific and secure controls for user IT access to valuable resources, whether those valuable resources are company funds, whether those valuable resources are CRM data, personally identifiable information of customers, software code, software IP, all of this is valuable resources. We talk about it nowadays in terms of access or users, but we forget that what we're trying to protect are these resources. And the fact of the matter is, if you really think about IAM, we're just using the most logical way to protect these resources, which is to prevent identities that have access to working with these resources and stealing such data or modifying or sabotaging this data. In such a case, that's what we're trying to protect. And we're just using access management and the identities and identity governance to accomplish that. But now if you go a bit deeper into it, we see a lot of issues with the current paradigm of privileged access management products. Fundamentally, most privileged access management products use 3 to 4 specific kinds of technologies. It might be built differently in different products, but what they do is they use credential rotation to secure certain accounts which don't belong to any user. A user is given the ability to access these accounts only at the time when they need it, if they need it, and this is done by giving them the password and then changing the password after the session. This is the fundamental premise of how PAM works these days. In addition, for forensics, there's session recording. A privileged session is recorded, and you have that information in case something goes wrong. There have been some developments. There are some more advanced things, just-in-time access, analytics, broader view. But fundamentally, the controls that are supplied by PAM tools revolve around credential rotation. But here's a deeper question. The administrators, your privileged access administrators, these are the guys who allow and provide these credentials on a required basis. And this is not just applicable to privileged access management administrators, any cybersecurity administrator, an HR database administrator. You can put the best possible cybersecurity technology in your environment. If your admin misuses it, you've nullified everything in one day. He's extremely dangerous. So who is policing the police? And this is an important question that no PAM solution at this moment has truly solved. Because you have to have standing access as that administrator to the privileged access controls. Otherwise, he is locked out of the entire system and everybody gets locked out instantly. So he has standing access while other people don't. But he's as big a risk, and his account, if it's compromised from outside, or if he misuses it from inside, you have a massive problem. Everything has just gotten negated completely. And the critical case of privileged access management, and another thing we're talking about, is user risk scoring. This picture has nothing to do with this. So that's moving on from privileged access management. Sorry, moving on, not from privileged access, yes, moving on from privileged access management. So we're also talking something as an example in terms of cybersecurity thinking that is part of cross-identity and the other product, which I'll talk about in a minute, where we're seeing the real problems in the structure and the delivery models and way of thinking of most identity and access management solutions. And here's a case for convergence, which is beyond just combining a set of technologies into one platform. User risk scoring. You guys might have heard about it from a few vendors now. I believe SailPoint is talking a little bit about it. Savient, One Identity has started talking about it. But what is effective user risk scoring? Fact of the matter is, when you're talking about a user risk score, you need it to be as informed and dynamic as possible. So if an IGA platform talks about user risk scoring, it's only got signals from its IGA platform. That's not enough information for an accurate user risk score. Cross-identity uses signals from its access management module. It uses them from its PAM module. It has a cloud infrastructure entitlements management module, and it also uses it from the CIEM module that I just talked about. And we collect all these risk scores. It has an embedded intelligence which is based on our years of experience, which we're going to empower with ML in the near future. And that risk score is going to be informed from so many different dimensions that it's going to be highly accurate. And what are we going to do with that risk score is also very important. Just having a risk score, what's the use? It's about providing decision-making guidance in the sense this is appropriate and that perhaps is not as appropriate. But it's also, we are realizing that when it comes to security, when it comes to our commitment as a cybersecurity vendor to customers' cybersecurity, we can't leave everything in their hands. They don't have the experience, they don't have the expertise, they don't have the time to think about the best practices in that year, given the current threat landscape. Our security score, we're going to be taking a very revolutionary approach where companies like Samsung, mobile phones, or anything, they're talking about choice. They're saying, I'm going to give you any option to do anything that you want. In cybersecurity, you can't do that. We have to, as guardians, as long-time experienced company in identity and access management, right from the beginning of the domain, with our heads deep inside the domain, we have to make those calls. These kind of accesses cannot be given in such a situation. This combination of accesses should simply not be allowed. It is our duty to hard lock some of these decisions to ourselves as cybersecurity vendors. Otherwise, we're not doing the best that we can for our customer. So this user risk scoring is just part and parcel of in the future, what we will have completely impossible combinations where we will simply not allow the product to, in a customer's environment, to allow that access to somebody else. Unless there's no other way, but our system will assess the entire environment and see if there's a safer way for that access and the activity that needs to be accomplished through that access to happen. And we will provide that pathway. So for example, our user risk scoring will also include things like criminal history from the HR database. And somebody is 1 year old at the organization, unfortunately has a criminal history, and also has poor cybersecurity hygiene. That's another factor that I think we'll consider. Password reuse, password forgetfulness, all gets added to the score. This person is in the finance department and has access to core banking, to make a transaction, to write for the requesting of a transaction, or perhaps, that, or to actually authorize the transaction. You have another person in your company that our system has picked up who has 3 years of experience, is perhaps a little more junior, so you didn't think of them for that activity. They're a little bit more junior, but they've been with you for 3 years. They've shown strong loyalty and trust, and they have no criminal history whatsoever. Our system will tell you that this is the right way. Allow this person to expand their responsibilities to do this, but do not allow this person to perform that activity. It is up to us as cybersecurity vendors and long-time thinkers in identity and access management to provide such guidance and in fact even create hard stops at certain points where for the better good of the customer we would not allow anything more than that to happen. All right, so now I'd like to talk a little bit about Access Sphere. This is our second converged platform, which will be going into beta testing in a few months. And yeah, the fundamental thing, again, it's converged IAM, but there's a number of significant differences. Why is it called Access Sphere and not following the normal identity-related nomenclature? Because we realize that identity and access management, despite having identity as the first word, is about 0.5% identity management and 99.5% access management. When it comes to defining the roles, when it comes to provisioning the users, joiner, mover, leaver, yeah, that's a part of what IGA does. It helps with the automation of that. But that's not our end goal in terms of cybersecurity. Our end goal is to secure the access and make sure that the person's account, neither the person himself as an inside threat or as an outside compromise, is dangerous to your organization. And so we're calling it Access Sphere because it is 360-degree convergence, but it is three-dimensional 360-degree convergence, much like a sphere. So in terms of just pure features, we have your basic access management with all your latest UBA, contextual, adaptive, but we're including MDM in our platform. And we're also including XDR and ITDR in our platform. And yes, these will be lighter weight offerings in terms of these than a full-blown XDR or ITDR. But it is the converged thinking, it is the experience, and it is the integration into the platform that will allow our XDR and ITDR and MDM built into Access Sphere to be as effective as a full-blown product because of how tightly it utilizes and leverages its native integration with the identity and access management functions. So you get something lightweight, but that is as effective. And in terms of business thinking, there's another purpose to Access Sphere in its second version, which we will be having after about a year and a half. This one is called Access Sphere Orbit. It is an offshoot of Access Sphere, same product, repackaged a little bit. And actually, I don't want to get too much into this one right now, but the fundamental thing over here is business productivity. I'll just give a short example. Let's say you have a lead gen person who has secured a discovery call in your company 5 minutes before lunchtime. He knows he's supposed to enter that into the CRM right away. But the way the computer mind works, business mind works, when you're sitting at a computer, I have to log into my CRM, I'll have to do the multi-factor authentication, then I'll have to enter the data, I'll have to pull the data from the Excel sheet, that's happening somewhere else, and that's going to be, okay, I'll do it after lunch. And that after lunch gets forgotten, and it happens 4 days later. Okay, maybe it's not a catastrophe in this case. Maybe nothing, it didn't cause any problems in this case, but it has caused potential problems, which we estimate at least 40% of a lot of productivity issues in organizations are because of disconnected thinking when they're working at the computer. And we realized as an SSO launchpad, because Access Sphere has SSO built into it, why do we not leverage the fact that there's this SSO launchpad and there is a lot of these things and make it a central place for businesses to start acting? So all your collaboration tools, or all your email tools, everything, we're going to have deep integrations in this. This is a theoretical thing. And we're going to see if we can change user behavior this way and make them far more productive, because all they got to do is, yes, I got that lead, I got that, my Access Sphere thing is right here in front of me. I double click on the application for my CRM, I'm already single signed on. I'm in, I do the CRM change, and now I go to lunch. You're rewiring the neural networks, and that can have immense value. It's another example of some of the things that we're planning to do. Since we're talking about access sphere, I would like to just give a brief this thing on the key features and benefits. So how are we differentiating cross-identity and access sphere, both being completely converged IAM platforms? Access sphere is built on the modular microservices architecture, and cross-identity follows a single code base, single language architecture. Now the truth is both of these have immense benefits in themselves. Coming back to the pepper spray example, just because modular microservice architecture where multiple different languages can be used in tandem for different features in the same product, doesn't mean that the old way of doing things, which is single code base, single language, is bad. In fact, it has immense value, which I'll show you in just a second. All right, let's talk about single code base, single language, because I don't think people appreciate the true value of single language and single code base, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. We're always thinking in terms of next gen, and next gen must be better than the old gen. But if you look at pepper spray, that's not the truth. Single code base, single language architecture is highly, highly reliable because we work with the same language, we work with the same code base year on year, year on year. So we know exactly how things change if we tweak just a little bit of code here or a little bit of code there. When you test it, everything gets tested at once. So you know that things that are functioning during that test will always function that way. There's no interaction between different languages, different modules, different microservices. So it's highly reliable. It also uses function calls rather than network calls, modular microservices, because you're talking between different languages. They have to use your network to do network calls to pull a feature or command a feature to execute in another module. And that's slower and network dependent. And function calls are much faster. It's also highly predictable, as I mentioned. It's easier to deliver features, updates, and bug fixes because it's a familiar platform that you're working with. There is minimized inter-system communication failures. That's another problem. We're talking about speed of function calls being faster. Because it's not network dependent, you don't have any issue in terms of the network failure causing the software to fail. Performance optimization, because you're just using one language, is always much more effective. And troubleshooting and support are easier and faster with less downtime. In comparison, when we talk about the benefits of microservice architecture, there's flexibility in terms of allowing for the development of new modules and features using specific coding languages best suited for each function. For example, there is a coding language called R, which is excellent at doing data visualization. So if you have something like Access Sphere, which is built on the microservices architecture, we'll use R for data visualization. There's another one called Flux, which is excellent for cross-platform desktop app development. So since both Access Sphere and Cross Identity have a SSO Launchpad and a desktop application, it'll be developed on Flux. And of course, Java, as an example, or C++ can be used for the core functionalities of the application. This is a huge benefit in microservices architecture. It's also light because each module is written separately and they're loosely coupled. And it doesn't bloat over time because it's not a single code. It makes deploying individual modules or features much easier. And API centricity. So the microservices architecture is they exclusively use APIs for integration. And it makes third-party integration much easier and faster in our modern world. The testing and release is faster and more agile, and it's far future. When we're talking about long-term vision, 10 years, 15 years, you can always add new software, new modules, rewrite a certain module in a newer language that's more effective, and things like that. So you can see that there are clear benefits to both. But how does that translate into our products? How does it translate into cross-identity and access sphere in terms of segmenting them? This is a rough thing. So for example, Access Sphere, because of the microservices architecture allowing you to individually deploy a module a lot more easily than deploying the entire platform. If you want to solve just an MFA problem or a device management problem, you can go for AccessSphere. In contrast, cross-identity is far more suited for broad, complex use cases, larger organizations, enterprise size, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 users, that kind of thing. If you look at talking about in terms of customer size, 200 to 500 applications, 200 to 500 employees with limited applications. It's better for that because it can be installed, integrated, up and ready really quick, and they can have exactly what they need if they don't need all of it. Whereas cross-identity works better for large enterprises, 500 plus applications. In terms of technology, if the company is API first, cloud native, they are invested into agility, could be far more useful. Cross-identity is better for larger organizations with more traditional IT systems, more traditional and legacy systems and on-premise applications. And even as they move to the cloud, if you're talking about the sheer size and scope of the environment and the deployment, cross-identity is far more suitable because of its stability, reliability, lack of failure from network failures due to no need for network calls, things like that. Price sensitivity, AccessSphere might be a little more, we have, I'm not going to go into this one right now, we're still working on our pricing for AccessSphere. And AccessSphere does have faster implementation because of its microservices architecture, also because in most cases you would be taking only X and Y and Z feature rather than the whole thing. Though cross-identity is still less complex and much easier to deploy than siloed products, is a longer deployment than AccessSphere. And yeah, so what I would like you guys to take away from this is not any of the specifics that were talked about here, but the larger context. And the two larger contexts that we want to reiterate over here are cybersecurity has to become a business about protection. It has to be an industry where vendors are thinking not in terms of how do I make a profit and how do I stay relevant, but in terms of how do I protect businesses from going down due to this massive community of, it's an interesting statistic actually that I read just 2 weeks ago. Did you know, I didn't know this, I just learned it, that if you look at every single organization in the world independently, not together, there's an average of about 1,500 and in India 2,000 breaches on a small or large level every week. That's the amount of cyber attacks that are happening, and that is the sheer enormous danger of that business cybersecurity needs to solve. So it is a call to vendors, to the cybersecurity industry, to start thinking more in terms of problem solving. It is also, we would like to say that cross-identity is, we don't have to wait for too long. Cross-identity has started working on these lines. In fact, somewhere inside that is how we were doing it when we started the product, but it has become a more aware, a more self-aware activity at this point. And I would also like you guys to take home that microservices and the other single code-based architecture both have immense benefits, and we have products for any kind of customer now. Thank you.